Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7 by 7. This is a bonus episode that focuses specifically on Vader Immortal, and don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to get ready for spoiler situations just yet. I'm going to tell you that there will be spoiler situations toward the end of this bonus episode. I will give you ample warning to tune out if you don't want to hear anything about the gameplay whatsoever. So don't worry, again, you'll have ample warning. So we're going to start off by talking about what was revealed at the panel at Star Wars Celebration Chicago today. And they had a whole crew of folks from Oculus and ILM and the Lucasfilm Story Group, represented by Matt Martin, in the panel moderated by Amy Ratcliffe. And additionally, David S. Goyer, who is the guy who wrote the story for Secrets of the Empire, actually, as well as the stuff that's going on in Vader Immortal, right? So some really serious stuff. And so what we find out from the panel is that the character that you play in the story is a smuggler, and the smuggler has a ship called the Windfall, and the Windfall gets basically shanghaied, as David Goyer puts it, by the Empire, and you end up being taken to Mustafar, and there you encounter an Admiral Carius, and Admiral Carius is voiced by Steve Blum, so you know him from Star Wars Rebels. He was the voice of Zeb in Rebels, and now he's voicing a bad guy for this one. And speaking of bad guys, Darth Vader himself is actually voiced by another animation person, and somebody who's actually voiced Vader in other media as well. Scott Lawrence, who is the voice of Jarek Yeager in Star Wars Resistance, is also the voice of Vader in Vader Immortal. But possibly the most inspired casting choice has to be for the role of Zoe 3, which is the floating robot that accompanies you on your quest throughout Vader Immortal. And that robot is voiced by Maya Rudolph, who is an alumnus of Saturday Night Live. And there were many stories, although lacking details to some degree, of the things that Maya was doing in the recording studio that were apparently very funny, but also possibly not necessarily brand friendly for discussion. But apparently she absolutely killed it and was the humor and heart of the story, and helps to take the edge off something that is otherwise a very scary and intimidating experience, dealing with Vader in VR. Now, speaking of the VR aspect of it, we talked about this a couple of days ago when we talked about the fact that the piece about Vader Immortal in the commemorative guide for Star Wars Celebration made it seem like there was more interactivity than had been previously suggested to us, and the Vader Immortal panel certainly made that the case as well. In fact, there is a thing called the Lightsaber Dojo inside this episode, and you will get to not only explore it and get to test your skills in it, but you'll be able to come back again and again. So it's actually something that you can practice and hone your skills in. It's not just one part of the story that you then have to leave in a very serial-like fashion. So there's that, and the fact that lightsaber combat is a very heavy aspect of this. They made it a point of saying that's big in episode 1 of Vader Immortal, but that episode 2 you will actually start to explore force powers, and they did not go into details about what force powers those might be, but force choking, force lightning, who knows? That could be some really interesting stuff. The trailer itself, when you get picked up by the Empire and Admiral Carius is saying, you've been a big inconvenience, but then says the Dark Lord, wants you to do something for him, and they show in the footage something that looks like a holocron, and you're opening it, you're closing it, you're doing something with it. Don't necessarily know what it is just yet, but Carius says you don't want to fail Vader in this task, whatever it is, and so then you're faced with the question, does that have anything to do with it? Because that's the scene that they're showing while Carius is telling you you've got to do something for the Dark Lord. And there is a scene where you're peering through some sort of metal grates, and you're seeing Vader kneeling down in front of something that's shining very bright, like a large kind of slab of something. It's hard to tell what it is, but you're actually imprisoned, and there's a Mustafarian in there who's saying that Vader is on the verge of something huge, and that you have to escape. And so one of the bits of gameplay footage that you get to see is the prison cell doors opening up and this Mustafarian moving through places and helping you, like knocking on a couple of stormtroopers, tapping on Zoe 3 to get her attention, things like that. There is also a Mustafarian priestess who shows up who's supposed to be the leader of her people, and there's a bit of dialogue, presumably from her, where she talks about Vader finding his candidate, and presumably that is you, the playable character. Yeah, the line that they give in there is that Vader is now within reach of enormous power, and so you, as the playable character, are going to somehow play a role in the galaxy teetering on the brink of destruction, and whether Vader is going to be able to bring it about or not. So that is the non-spoiler information, because that's the stuff that was revealed publicly in the panel. And you can also play a brief snippet, about a 5-minute snippet of this. And I have not played this. However, there is a write-up on IO9, and so that is where the information for the spoilery part of things happens. Now, before I fully get into the spoiler situation, I will tell you that at the panel, they said the little bit of stuff that happens in the 5-minute demonstration is part storytelling that happens early on in the episode, and part of it is time in the lightsaber dojo, where you're just actually getting to get the workout, basically. So here is the spoilery part that if you don't want any bit of Vader Immortal, of the actual gameplay experience spoiled for you, then save this part for a later date and go with my blessings and check out any of the other episodes that I've done for today. And I will say, may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be for right now, for you folks. And everybody else staying with me, here is the deal. So this, it turns out that the little holocrony looking thing, that is in fact what you are supposed to do. You're supposed to try to open this thing, and when you get it done, then Vader shows up and says, you are the person that I've been seeking. And you find out that your task is to retrieve an object for Vader, and this object is called the Bright Star. What that actually is, we don't get to find out. We have no idea. But there is a tie back to Secrets of the Empire, and Matt Martin of Lucasfilm Story Group talked about how there's an aspect of Secrets of the Empire that if you haven't gone through that particular virtual reality experience, then he did not want to spoil it for anyone in the room who hadn't gone through it. But there's something about what you discover in Secrets of the Empire inside Vader's castle in Mustafar that ties very strongly to the events in Vader Immortal and what you have as a character have to do there. I will say that if you search on Star Wars 7x7 for Secrets of the Empire, I did a non-spoiler episode and a spoiler episode, so if you really want to dig into that, then I have to tell you that that's the place where you want to go to get it. So that is officially now going to do it for our rundown of everything new that we learned about Vader Immortal from Star Wars Celebration Chicago here at day 2 of the big event. And there's going to be other episodes. There's an episode on the Lucasfilm Publishing panel. There's my initial reactions to the Rise of Skywalker trailer, and we're going to do our standard numbered episode, which is going to run down the top headlines from the show, including what I actually think this whole Skywalker thing might be about. So check that out, please, if you will. For now, though, that is officially going to do it for this episode, and if you've stayed with me, then this one is for you. May the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.